Hi, I'm Laura Brandenburg from Bridging the Gap, and today I want to talk about how to figure out what questions to ask in a requirements meeting. Because the last thing you want to do is get time on your stakeholders' calendar, get people actually showing up to your meeting, and then being like, tell me what you want. What do you want? Right? And they're like, I don't know what I want. And you feel stuck, right? So you really want to make great use of your stakeholders' time. And I firmly believe that every meeting we run as a business analyst, we should invest probably at least that same amount of time as the meeting is going to be, or even 2 or 3 times more in preparing for that meeting, preparing a deliverable for that meeting, preparing the questions we have for that meeting, reviewing documentation related to that meeting. And it's not so that we have all the answers, right? The whole point of the meeting is to get answers to questions that we don't have and to get engagement from our stakeholders to make sure they feel involved in the project. So it's not about having all the answers ahead of time, but it's having thought through what kinds of information we need and what kinds of answers we might even receive, and then what kinds of questions we would have based on those answers, so that we're prepared and can make really, really great use of our stakeholder time and get known as the kind of effective, efficient BA who runs great meetings that get lots of work done. Okay, so you want to learn how to do that? Let's dive in. So what I like to do is create what's called a requirements questionnaire. And often I'll do this side by side with a draft deliverable like a use case or a business process model or even a data model if we're looking at the data. But like, what are the questions that I have, right? And the way I do this is I think about that feature, whether it's the process that we're talking about, it could be support customers, it could be order product, or a specific use case, so like search for a specific kind of information, right? I think about that feature, and I just start in my mind playing through what questions do I have. So I think about how questions, like how might this work, or how would this process start, or where would I be? So where questions, where would a person be when they're doing this? Where does the information go from here? What questions? So what are the connection points? What do I do first? What do I do next? When questions, like when does this happen? Does it happen every Tuesday at 10 a.m.? Does it happen once a week? Does it happen 24 hours after another action, right? When does this happen? And when are the connections? What are the SLAs or service level agreements? Like, are there rules around how quickly something needs to happen or when it gets triggered? Who does it? So who questions? Who does the process? Who hands things off to who? Who else might be involved in this process or this piece of software that I haven't involved yet? And finally, why questions? So like, why are we doing this, right? What is the problem that we're truly solving with this change? Why, how else, that's a how question, but it's a how else might we accomplish the same objective, helps you drill into the real why question. And I like to, a lot of these questions will actually end up being why questions, but I like to keep the number of actual why questions to a minimum and just sprinkle them in. And the reason is that why questions can be very confrontational, right? So when you ask somebody why, and then like we've all heard of the technique, or maybe you haven't, but in the Bayback, there's a technique called the 5 whys, which is you ask why to every answer again and again and again until you get to the root cause of what that person really wants and why they want it. And in philosophy, in theory, like that is what we need to be doing as a business analyst. But in practice, that doesn't mean you just sit down and be like, okay, why? And then, okay, great. And why is that important, right? You have to have a little finesse here and be conversational and show that you're really listening and reflect back. Oh my gosh, I bet that must be really frustrating. And like, if that happens, like, if that goes wrong, what would happen then, right? So you're asking why in a very conversational, engaging way, and you're getting to that same information. And so really be thinking about these questions before you go into the meetings. We actually have an entire repository of questions called our Requirements Discovery Checklist Pack that we offer at Bridging the Gap. That's one of our template toolkits. And there'll be a link below where you can download one of the checklists from that pack completely for free. And so it'll give you a flavor for the category of support customers of the kinds of questions that you might want to ask. Now, one of the things I wanted to say about the checklist is it's written in a generic way, right? Because it's meant to serve business analysts from all kinds of backgrounds, all domains, all across the world. So who's a customer in your organization might be very different than a customer in somebody else's organization. So first you need to figure out who is your customer, right? Is your customer an end user? Is it a consumer? Is it a bank? Is it another organization? Right? Who is that customer? And then layer in those questions with that understanding of what your customer support process could look like, and use those questions to really drill in to the customer support process and just see how that might work. Now, in the checklist pack, we cover multiple different areas and lots of areas of requirements discovery, so that you always have questions that you can refer back to that will help you speed up the process to prepare for your next meeting. I know not everybody feels like they have like 3 or 4 hours to prepare for a 1-hour meeting, even though that's what we know we should be doing, right? And so we want to speed up that process using tools and templates and checklists and good business analysis thinking. And that's part of the resources that we do provide as part of our offerings and our product offerings at Bridging the Gap. But for today, you have that free checklist just so you can kind of see how this works and how it might apply for you. And I hope that really helps you get a great start. But the one thing I want you to take away from this video is like to take the time to prepare. Know going into a meeting what questions you have. And so that allows you to use the meeting to really focus more on your listening, right? So when you ask that question, you're free to listen and absorb information and take in that information, because you don't have to be thinking, oh gosh, what is my next question going to be, right? Your next question is written down on the paper, right? It's going to help you. It's going to be there for you. And you can always kind of take a pause. Let me just like see what questions we've answered. I came in with like 20 different questions. I think we've probably answered over half of them. Let me just see, where the gaps still are to make sure we use the best use of everyone's time here. You could always have that pause. I want to leave you with that too. And the other thing I will say about a questionnaire is like, just because you have 20 questions doesn't mean you sit there and like ask one question after another without any there needs to be an engaging factor to it. There needs to be a sense of like, if somebody answered 3 of your questions by answering the first one, right? You don't have to keep asking the questions that are in your questionnaire. You can be like, oh, actually I have the answer to that. Or I had a question about this. Does that trigger any new thoughts? If not, we can move on to the next one, right? So that allows you to really be engaging, make great use of people's time, and be responsive and show that you are taking in the information that they're giving you, which is a great way to build more trust in your stakeholder relationships. Also get them to show up to the next meeting on time, and hopefully the first time, because they see how engaging you are. They feel heard, they feel listened to, they feel appreciated, and they know that you're going to use their time wisely and that you're going to move the project forward faster. And that makes people want to show up and want to be there with you and have you as the BA on their project. So I'd love to hear what you think. Tell me below how you've used requirements questionnaires or your successes with this technique. And again, I'm Laura Brandenburg from Bridging the Gap. We help business analysts start and succeed in their business analyst careers. And what I believe, we build our profession one business analyst at a time, and success starts with you. Thanks for being here.